Hey you guys, it's Peter and welcome to my channel, Peter Likes Books. And today I'm going to talk about my favorite books of 2018. I honestly cannot believe that we are at the end of the year already. And you know, this is my third time getting to do this video. I did it in 2016 when I started my channel, 2017, and now this is my third year. And I was thinking back, I got kind of a little sad when I was thinking about, I don't know why, like of all the books that I have read, you know, since I've been on BookTube and found out because of BookTube. And I was thinking back on some of like the books that to me still stand out. You know, the two of the books that stand out the most to me that were in my favorites lists the last couple years was Dumpling by Julie Murphy and The Hate U Give by Angie Thomas. Those two books stood out to me and still stand out to me as two of my favorites of life. And honestly, books that I would never have found out about had I not been on BookTube or been watching BookTube videos. So I'm just so thankful again for being part of this community. I love BookTube. It's most of the videos that I watch, except for like alien sightings in outer space. But and I also love this channel called Nick and Poncho about this guy and his pet chihuahua. It's adorable. So anyway, I was going through today and I was actually going to make a video about the worst books that I read this year. But when I was going through my Goodreads, I would just start screenshotting like books that really stood out to me this year. Books that really resonated with me, but also books that had kind of a lasting impression on me for whatever reason. And you know, it was really interesting because when I was looking, I came up with 17, you guys. And I'm going to go through them quickly. But the 17 books that I came up with, like, they were all different books. There were some young adult, there were some thrillers, there was, you know, some true crime, there was all kinds of, you know, different books in there. And speaking of true crime, I do want to say this, because a couple of my favorites and a couple of my least favorites were books that we read as part of Peter's book club, which was probably one of the highlights. I would say the two highlights of my year, well, the three highlights that I've had. The third highlight of the year, I would say, has been reading all the Harry Potter books. I've read 4 of them, and I'm going to read the 5th, 6th, and 7th one going into 2018, January, February, March. So I will have finished reading that. I'm going to talk about further goals in a video that I'm going to do before the end of the year. The second, number 2, the runner-up to the best thing that has happened to me has been starting my book club, you know, which I don't consider it even like my book club. It's just got my name on it, and I'm really thinking about changing the name of it to something else. Because it has just been so much fun, and I've been introduced to books that, you know, I hadn't read in a while, or books that I reread and liked or just didn't like, and also books that I would never have read had it not been for that book club. So I'm so thankful to that, and all the people that have participated in it, and all the people that I've met through it. But most importantly, and it's important for me to talk about, you know, one of my highlights this year, not just being a book that I read, but one of the greatest things that's happened to me on BookTube as a result of BookTube and starting the book club, which was just, I just literally went over to my computer one day and I was like, damn it, I'm starting a book club because I want to be part of a book club. And I met one of the members, and she offered to help out and be the administrator behind all the scenes, and she literally does everything. She runs the whole show, and she has become one of my dearest friends. We talk daily, text daily, and I just love her so much. And that is my former book club assistant, former vice president, and I'm going to make her the president of Peter's book club because I just adore her, and without her there would be no Peter's book club. I'm going to tear up. But she's awesome, and to make a friend through, you know, social media and YouTube and videos, like, that's one of the coolest things that has ever happened to me by being on this. So, okay, this has gone way off the deep end of what I was going to talk about. So anyway, I came up with 17 books, and it's interesting because they're like from all different things. But oh, about the book club. So going into 2018, I have to say this. We are going to be reading a year, okay, a year of true crime, starting with Ann Rule's The Stranger Beside Me. We're starting to read it January 1st, and we will do the live book club discussion on the last Sunday of January, and tomorrow is the very last live discussion for 2018 from the book club, and we are discussing David Sedaris' Holidays on Ice, which is hilarious, and I have to finish it tonight. That will be the last book that I read this year. So anyway, I did not meet my Goodreads goal. I didn't meet my Goodreads goal. I don't really care. I've kind of like moved past that at this point. So let me start at 4 minutes and 40 seconds getting into my top 17 books of the year, and I'm going to read them backwards going all the way up to the first, my number 1 book, which kind of surprised me, honestly. But I really picked books that I've recommended to people books that have lingered with me and books that I just couldn't get out of my mind. And coming in at number 17 is Rabbit, the autobiography of Miss Pat. This book, I think it was like an Audible daily deal, and I found it, which is so interesting because she lives in Indianapolis, and she is a comedian here. She's also a national comedian. She's been on all kinds of radio shows. I love reading memoirs. I love reading autobiographies, and this was about her growing up in Atlanta, and it was fantastic. It was just absolutely fantastic. And it was just so heartfelt, but there are scenes that are just hilarious too. And you know, I was always, like, I've been sober for, 24 years. I just celebrated 24 years on the 17th. And one of the things that I have, been taught in growing up in sobriety was to always tell on yourself, and funny parts of yourself, deep parts of yourself, or whatever. And she tells on herself in this book, and it's fantastic. So if you haven't read Rabbit, go check it out. Coming in at number 16 is Nora Roberts' Year One. Now, I have made many, many jokes about Nora Roberts on my channel. Year One is actually a step outside of her romance kind of stuff that she does, and it's very much paranormal and fantasy and all of, not paranormal, but it's fantasy and all that kind of stuff. And it has, well, I guess it does. It has like all kinds. It has literally every kind of character you could possibly imagine, from like Charlaine Harris books of like, this and that, and just everything. There's fairies in it, and there's shadow people. There's all kinds of things, and it's about the apocalypse as well. I really thought it was going to be corny when I went into it, and I absolutely loved it. And it's been a book that I've recommended to a lot of people. And the second one just came out recently, I think like a month ago in the series, and I just bought it on Audible. So I'll be doing my review on that before too long. Okay. Number 15, I literally, look, I wrote them down, and then I went through, and I crossed some out and came back, and okay. Coming in at number 15 is They Both Die at the End by Silveira. This was one of the very, very first books that I read in 2018. Honestly, if I had to pick less books, this would probably be in the top 10 still. It just had such a profound effect on me, but there were so many great books that I read this year. This one, though, I still remember just nuances about the book. I thought the idea was so fantastic. I thought it was so creative and so different. That the two people meeting up on the last day before they die, and and I love books that don't necessarily end the way that I want them to, because they challenge my belief systems. And if you haven't read it, it's fantastic. I also have Silveira, his new book. Why can't I think of what her name is? Oh my God, you guys are killing me right now. But he has a new book out with why can't I think of her name? Anyway, I just bought that book. Maybe We Weren't, or What If We Are, or whatever it's called. I literally just bought that on Audible as well. Okay, why can't I think of what her name is? I've read all her books. Okay, coming in at, it's going to hit me in a second, so just wait. Number 14, The President is Missing by James Patterson and Bill Clinton. Okay, so I read this book. I listened to it on Audible when I was in Connecticut for a trip with my husband. And I would have to drive around, and I would have to upload videos on my phone in my car because our Wi-Fi sucks so bad at the hotel. Well, while I was doing it, I would listen to Audible books, and this was the Audible book that I was listening to. And I just wanted to listen to something to escape. It was so well done, you guys. I used to love James Patterson way back in his early days, but I don't necessarily love him now. And I've been trying to read some of his current stuff, and I just don't love it. But this reminds me of back in the olden days. It's very interesting, too, because you kind of wonder what parts Bill Clinton, having been president, told him, because there's a lot of kind of insider secrets about the presidency that you wouldn't really know unless you had been there. It's interesting. It's interesting. Okay, that was number 14. It's driving me crazy that I cannot remember who Silveira wrote that book with. And it's literally on the tip of my tongue. Okay, coming in at number 13. Do I not have a number 13? Did I not write it down? Oh, Afterlife of Holly Chase by Cynthia Hand. I literally just read this, and I just put my review up. It's kind of a retelling of A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, which I just listened to on Audible and finished yesterday. I mean, I've read it a million times. But I wanted to listen to this version. It was a current version of it. And The Afterlife of Holly Chase was not what I expected. It was genius creatively, and it was so fantastic. So if you haven't read it, go check it out. Okay, number 12 was The Cabin at the End of the World by Paul Tremblay. I read this for Spookathon, and Kayla over at Books and Lala actually recommended this to me, and it was fantastic. It was so, so, so good, and I never really knew what to expect with it, and I love books like that like it kind of changes constantly. And that kind of like, those were some of the books that I leaned towards and like fell in love with this year, and you'll see that as we get higher up in the number. So, okay, that was number 12. Number 11 was Artemis by Andy Weir. Now, I know a lot of people did not like this book, and I did not love his first book. What was it called? I don't even remember now. Mars or the Planet or whatever. I just thought that book was so boring, and I thought the movie was boring too. I like... Somebody like gave me the book, and I read like the first chapter and was like, Yawnsville, and I didn't even, you know, get any farther than that. And then I watched the movie later. What's the movie? You know what I'm talking about, with Matt Damon? It was so bad. It was so boring. I know some of you out there. What was, The Martian. Yeah, that's what it was. And then I watched the movie, and I just was like, I think I got like an hour into it, actually. I will say that the other night, my husband and I, he fell asleep, but I watched the whole thing. We watched The Snowman, which was the book-to-movie adaptation of Joe Nesbo's novel. It was fantastic. I loved it. Okay, but Artemis was so different than what I expected. It was kind of like the movie Blade Runner a little bit, but it was about this like con on the moon and about people living on the moon. It was so good. I thought it was really, it just kept me intrigued. It kept me interested. So that's at number 10 or 11. Number 10. I recommended this book to so many people, you guys. So many people. Now, one of my all-time favorite books of life is The Art of Racing in the Rain. And it's about a dog and him talking about his entire life with his master and best friend. I now have a second close book that I love as well about dogs, and that is Lily and the Octopus by Stephen Rowley. The book, it tore me apart. It just was so fantastic. And I really thought it would be very, very similar to The Art of Racing in the Rain, but it's not. It's completely different. So you should go check it out if you like dog books. I will tell you. It is a little bizarre in some places. Like, it kind of goes, woo. I was like, okay, what's going on here a little bit? But then it pulls it back in. And most of these books I did full reviews on, because I tried to do a review for every book that I read in 2018. So if you want to see a spoiler-free review, go check it out. Okay, that was number 10. Number 9... Where's my number 9? Number 9 is Behind Your Eyes by Sarah Pinborough. Okay, so this was the second big mystery that I read this year, and I recommended this to my best friend. She read it. She hated it. I'm just going to tell you, okay? She's like, I didn't get the ending. I thought it was so far off the deep end. I was like, I know, but that's kind of what I loved about it. It was kind of like this mystery that was on the bestseller list, and everybody just expected it to be a mystery, and then the end of it was so far out there that it was like, did that just happen? And that is what I love so much about this book. When I read it, it was on the heels of reading another book that's going to make it on this list. So I don't want to say what it is just yet. I just looked back at my review on Goodreads, and I said this was the best mystery that I read in 2018. If you are looking for a great mystery, go check this out. Behind Your Eyes by Sarah Pinborough. Okay, so that's number 9. Number 8, oh my god, it was such a great book. My top 10 is so hard because I loved all of these books, was Truly Devious by Marlene Johnson. Now, I don't know how I just randomly picked up this book. I heard that it was coming out, and I read kind of a synopsis about it, and I was like, another series, another young adult series. So good. It was so, so, so good. And it was about this girl that goes to a boarding school, and it's for all these kids that have like talents in certain areas, and her talent is being a detective. And so it's this whole mystery that occurs. But I will tell you this, okay, which really did not make me happy, Maureen Johnson, was that in the very end, I literally was at the end, and I thought, how is this going to end? On a cliffhanger it literally just on a cliffhanger. And I don't know when the sequel is coming out. It's part of a trilogy, it's not a series. I think it's a trilogy, and I'm ready for the next part to come out because it was so good, and it just was so much fun to read. Okay, number 7. I'm like losing my pages and everything here. Number 7 was Bird Box by Josh Malerman. I just fell in love with this book, and I know it came out in 2014, but my husband and I just watched a movie the other night. I thought it was fantastic. A lot of people, this is what's killing me, is people are like, well, it's just like this, or it's just like that movie, A Quiet Place. And I'm like, do you realize that this book came out like 4 years ago, like long before those movies came out? I thought it was just really, really well done. It wasn't what I expected at all, and a lot of people had recommended it to me, and then when I went and read it, I was like, this is really like creative. I love creative new ideas that have thrillers and myths, so if you have some recommendations, put it in the comment section below. Okay, number 6 was Puddin by Julie Murphy. I'm kind of surprised this didn't make it higher up in my list, but I read, like, the books I read this year, they were either, like, phenomenal or crap. Like, when I was looking through my books, most of them were 4 5s if I liked them, or I didn't like them at all. And, Puddin was so fantastic, and if you haven't read it, it is a spin-off of Dumplin' with Millie Milichuk, and she's the main character in it, and she's just so lovable, but like in a different way than Willow Dean from Dumplin'. And what happens toward the very beginning of the book is just like, I don't know, it's very something that would have happened to me or a friend of mine in high school. And it kind of reminded me a little bit of back in the day, if you ever saw the movie with Can't Buy Me Love. Do you guys remember that movie? It reminded me a little bit of that, but it was so much deeper than that. I don't know. I loved this book. I thought it was fantastic. I thought the lessons were in it were great. But I really like everything by Julie Murphy. I loved Ramona Blue. I loved this. I loved Dumplin'. Side Effects may vary, not my favorite book, but I still loved it, but it wasn't my favorite, but it was also her first. So, okay, number 5, let's see, where's my number 5? She's Come Undone by Wally Lamb, which was a reread for me, and we did this in the book club this year. And if you haven't read it, it is about a girl who, it starts off when she's very, very young, and it takes you through her entire life until she's like my age, and failed relationships, her dad's leaving, just parents' divorce, mother's mental health issues, her mental health issues. It is so fantastic, and I had really forgotten how good it was. And when I read it for the book club, I literally was sobbing at the end of it, like literally sobbing. And what was interesting about it was I read it when I was probably, I don't know, in my middle 20s, and it was after I got sober that I read it, and then I, read it again this year, and it was just as good, but it affected me in different ways because of the ages, that I'm in. I read it differently this time. So that was I think that was what, number 5? Oh my God, we're almost at the end. I can't believe it. Where is it at? She's Come Undone. Where are you at? She's Come Undone. She was number 5. Number 4? Oh my God, what a great book. Another book club read. The book club really introduced me to books that I wouldn't have normally read. And that was My Life as a White Trash Zombie by Diana Rowland. Okay, now listen. Now I know that the cover is horrible, and but I kind of love the covers now. And I know that the title is like My Life as a White Trash Zombie. These books are so fantastic, okay? They are zombie books, yes, but they are so much more. The character, and there's like 6 or 7 in the series. I'm on I have the third, I'm like, gotta start the third one, and I'm gonna finish the series in 2018, because it is so good. The audiobooks are fantastic, too. I'm like losing my voice. Excuse me. Need a little sip of my coffee. Okay, but anyway, it's about this girl, and she gets turned into a zombie, but then she has to work for the coroner's office, and it's all this kind of stuff. But there's also like kind of mystery and, intrigue that goes on behind the scenes, and there's also love and all that kind of stuff. Plus, she's got like an alcoholic family, and they really deal with addiction in the book in a fantastic way. It's so much deeper than a zombie book, and it's so well done. And if you've read them and you liked them, also go check out Rhiannon Frater, As the World Dies. It's my favorite zombie series of life. I love Rhiannon Frater. She is such a fantastic author. Okay, so that was number 4, My Life as a White Trash Zombie. Number 3, I just lumped them all together, and that is the Harry Potter books by J.K. Rowling, which I read the first 4 this year. It's funny because each one that I read, like, that becomes my next favorite. So, like, I just finished Goblet of Fire, and I'm like, I really, really liked that. Each book that I read, it's like, oh, that's my new favorite. I did not love Goblet of Fire at the beginning, I have to tell you. The whole Quidditch match and all that kind of stuff, and I did a full review of this. But at the end, I really ended up loving that book. And I don't know, it's weird. I've only got 3 more, to read until I've read the whole series. And so, we'll see. We'll see what happens with Harry Potter going into 2018, what I think. So that's number 3. Number 2, I have talked so much about this book, okay? And I cannot wait until his next book coming out, which I think is coming out this year. And that is The Woman in the Window by A.J. Finn. This Now, let me just tell you, when I read this book, or synopsis, and I went into it, it's a mystery, okay, about this woman, and she's an alcoholic. When I read this, I thought it was going to be just a retelling of Rear Window, because it, like, references a lot of, like, Hitchcock movies and old movies and stuff. It is so much more. It is so much more. If you love mysteries and you have not read The Woman in the Window, you are really missing out. It is probably the best mystery that I have read in the last 5 years, okay? And it is like the next book I know that he's doing in San Francisco, and it's kind of like homage to Chinatown, like the movie. It is, because I heard it in an interview. He is so good, you guys. He is such a fantastic writer. In fact, I kind of thought at first that it was Paula Hawkins who wrote The Girl on the Train. I thought like it was Paul Hawkins, but then under a pseudonym, but then I heard an interview with him and it wasn't Paul Hawkins. So anyway, if you haven't read The Woman in the Window, it is fantastic. Go check it out. I cannot wait. He is such a phenomenal writer. I cannot wait to see what he has next coming. And then the number one, can anybody guess what it is? I don't even think I need to look. I already know what it is. It is I'll Be Gone in the Dark by Michelle McNamara. One woman's obsessive search for the Golden State Killer. I don't know why. God, I could kind of get like weirdly emotional talking about this. I am so into this story now. I can't even begin to tell you how much research I do on it, how many articles I've read. I just recently listened to, and this would have made it on here, but it's an Audible exclusive. I just listened to Evil Has a Name, which is like a documentary podcast book on Audible by Paul Holes and the other two investigators that led the investigation for the Golden State Killer. It's just such an interesting story to me, and the impact that it has on the Zodiac Killer and all these kinds of things, the Night Stalker, of which they originally called him the original Night Stalker, on and on and on, because of how it changed DNA testing forever. It's so interesting to me. And I think it's going to change the way that we look at true crime going forward as well, and how they catch people. They just recently caught another murderer who killed this girl in 1989. And they caught him with a Coke can, DNA on a Coke can. Can you believe it? So anyway, I just read that article like last week, and I called up Mel, and I said, oh my God, because we're both obsessed with the case. And I said, did you hear? And I sent her the article and whatever. So I have been like weirdly obsessed with that. And I also think that because of this case, Michelle McNamara, the author, who was the wife of the actor Patton Oswalt, she passed away. And before the Golden State Killer was found. Once you start reading this book and you start reading about the characters and you listen to the podcast like My Favorite Murder, and you listen to these interviews with people like Paul Holes, the investigator, it's really hard to not feel personally affected. When I read the book, Evil Has a Name, it's all told on Audible. It's all told through the victim's point of view and through the investigator's points of view, and you really hear how the victims were affected and how the families of the victims were affected. And what you really realize is you see, okay, like a criminal, how he affects people long term, and it's such an interesting case because it's so much more than just true crime of a killer and the victim. It's so much deeper than that, and it's 40 and 50 years of people's careers and things like that. So if you haven't read I'll Be Gone in the Dark, I've recommended this book, you guys, to so many people. It is so fantastic. And it's just so well done. And I really think the way that In Cold Blood by Truman Capote changed the way that we looked at crime documentaries, books, I think that this, I'll Be Gone in the Dark, will forever change the way that we look at true crime. Anyway, those are my top 17 books. Let me know what some of your favorite books were in the comment section below. I need some new books going into 2018. So let me know what you think about my choices. If you thought they were great, if you thought they were crap, if you thought some of these books were like the worst things you ever read, let me know. I love you guys, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.